The moment my family shunned me, and I fought back. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My family banned me from Sunday dinner with a single text. The message lands while I'm elbow-deep in a rust-red Corolla, the belt squealing under my ratchet as if it's protesting for me. I'm Eric, 30, the auto shop guy who remembers customers by the sound of their engines. My job matters because when a car stalls on a highway shoulder, you're the one who stands between someone and a bad headline. But in my family, useful isn't glamorous. Useful isn't Blake's favorite word. Useful is a paper towel at a wedding. The group chat's 3 dots glow and die, like a hesitant heartbeat. Mom, Teresa, posts a stock photo of a white tulip and writes, "Let's keep the table peaceful." Blake follows with less drama, more lamb. Then the thread's permissions quietly shift. I can still read, but I can't speak. I'm a guest in a room I painted at 12, a mute spectator at my own dinner. Rent is due Friday. Overtime is on the line. Silence would be cheaper now, but bankrupt later. If I let their story harden, it will stick to me like oil on denim, never fully washed out, only disguised by darker stains. I wipe my hands, open my voicemail. There's one new message, a clipped voice that sounds like mine, asking an uncle to square things by Friday. A timestamp overlapping another notification. Layered, sloppy, or I'm paranoid. I stand under the bay lights, counting risks like sockets in a case. Income, reputation, the slender trust I've built with neighbors who text me for jumpstarts on Sundays. If I push back, I risk making mom choose between truth and harmony. If I don't, the word fraud will follow my name into every waiting room. Then a private number calls, and a voice says, "You know what you did." I learned to read people by listening to broken things. Teresa taught me patience with stuck bolts and stuck feelings. She'd murmur, "Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty," and breathe until the metal gave way. Blake learned charisma. Rooms opened for him like automatic doors. At 12, I tuned bikes for cousins. He sold the bikes and said he'd upgraded the family's ride. I swore I saw a receipt once that looked suspiciously like my handwriting photocopied wrong, but telling on him felt like throwing a spark in a dry attic. Last Christmas, he raised a glass to Eric, the man with 1,000 oil changes and no plan. Laughter came easy. My smile came cheaper. I had floated him $600 for a bridge he never crossed. When I asked about it, he tapped my shoulder, said, "Family floats, bro." And Teresa, brittle-cheeked and tired, served him pie before serving a verdict. A week ago, Blake posted in the family thread, "Heads up, weird activity tied to Eric's name. Be careful." Heads turned without turning toward me. No questions. No calls. Rosa, my mother's older sister, texted me privately, "I'm still here." She has this way of anchoring reality with a soft voice and hard facts. She remembers our family before money became the language of affection. Now the tulip post, the mute setting on the chat, the chorus of nothing. I rinse my hands at the shop's sink, watch gray water ribbon away, and think of all the times I swallowed disrespect because mom hates conflict more than debt. I hear the echo of Blake's last toast, feel the sting of it settle again. At Sunday dinner, Blake stands and announces he finally has receipts with my name. The first flag is digital and almost ordinary. Unusual login attempt. Check account activity. My checking account is a homebody. It lives between the shop, my studio, and the discount grocer. Inside the alert sits a pending verification for a loan application I never started. Address? Mine. Last 4 of my social? Almost. But the middle digits are swapped, like a key cut just off spec. The kind of wrong that lets a lock turn once and then shear. That night, the family thread lights up with a screenshot. Mobile diagnostics, $4.80. Unpaid, stamped with my initials in a font I'd never choose. The invoice looks perfect at a glance, too perfect under a pinch zoom. I catch a tell, a timestamp that matches my phone's atomic clock down to the second rather than the shop's register clock, which runs a reliable 2 minutes fast. Whoever faked it knows how I format totals, but didn't know our clock's quirk. Mom calls, voice trembling but formal. "Did you make this to push Aunt over a barrel?" The question is a verdict wearing a sweater. I say no. I say the font is wrong. I say the timestamp is off. She asks me not to make a scene. In my ear, I can hear Blake pacing through his lines like an actor before curtain. I check my email and find a verification code I never requested, then a note from a credit bureau about a hard inquiry you may recognize. I don't. I print it anyway, label it with a date and time, slide it into a fresh folder called Sunday, and breathe like a man counting lug nuts back onto a wheel in the rain. My mother asks, voice brittle, why I forged my own invoice to trap family. Sunday dinner turns into a tribunal with rosemary potatoes. Teresa polishes the forks like shine could erase friction, like silver might conduct a better version of us. I come because she asked, because saying no to her feels like stripping a bolt I'll later have to drill out. The table gleams, conversation does not. Blake clears his throat and arranges a stack of papers with the calm of a magician about to find your card. I didn't want to do this, he says, already smiling. He sends the stack clockwise, the invoice screenshot, a bank notice, a clipped chat where my avatar demands payment from our aunt for a rush job I never did. When the papers reach me, they smell like toner and certainty. That's not me, I say. Then who is it? Blake asks, almost delighted. The room shifts toward theater. Teresa whispers, let's be calm. But calm is just a nicer word for verdict when the outcome's pre-decided. Blake taps his phone. I can play the voicemail. A voice like mine asks an uncle to square things by Friday. The date stamp jitters over a notification beneath it. Layers reveal fingerprints when you angle them to light. Show me the original file, I say. He pulls the phone back like I've coughed. Uncle's face is hard. Cousins study their plates. I remember grease under my nails and the honest yes/no of engines, and I feel dizzy in a room where performance outruns proof. Teresa reaches for my sleeve as if touch could ballast truth, as if a mother's fingers could torque shame to speck. My mouth tastes like pennies, that old taste of blood and battery. We'll sort it privately, Blake says, faux gentle. Family stays in-house. Receipts stay with the bank, Rosa says from the doorway, and I realize she came without announcing herself. Her gaze pins paper to gravity. The wall clock ticks through someone's rehearsed silence. A car door thunks outside, heavy and official. A courier steps inside and hands me a notice, final demand. The envelope is heavier than paper has a right to be. Final demand before filing, addressed to my full name. Tied to a mobile diagnostics LLC I've never registered. Amount due, for $1,780. Late fees accruing like an over-tightened belt singing under load. Teresa's fork clinks, then stills. Can we press pause? She asks the air, but appetites keep moving forward. The lamb must be eaten hot. Someone needs me guilty before it cools. After dinner, I dial and text. Calls go unanswered, blue bubbles marked delivered drying into little tombstones. Blake switches off read receipts. The family chat renames itself to Family Table. Permissions adjusted so my words won't clutter the linens. On Monday, I sign up for overtime, change brake pads with the steady boredom that saves lives, sell the nice torque wrench I told myself was an investment. Rent looms. Rosa texts, document everything. Don't swing. Facts only. I buy a cheap printer, a ream of paper, a neon folder I label Sunday. Into it go the bank alert, the hard inquiry notice, the phone bill proving I was on a customer call during the alleged rush job. The printer jams like a metaphor. I clear it, smudged with ink that won't wash out fully. Teresa calls late, voice soft and tired. Maybe give it a week to cool, she says. Cooling is what engines do before they seize, before damage sets like regret. Silence will fossilize their version. I open a blank doc and type a list of what I know, date it, time it, initial each line like I'm my own notary. Evidence is oxygen. Air returns to my chest in shy, measured breaths. Morning brings its own cruelty and, unexpectedly, leverage. Then a misaddressed email arrives from Blake's banker at noon. Subject, Eric D. Application clarifications. The salutation, Hi Blake, followed by questions about my employment, service contracts, and whether the guarantor, me, is comfortable with the limit. It's a thread meant for him, delivered to me because addresses differ by one character, no autocomplete noticed. I read the headers twice, then 3 times, then print them with the tiny routing lines preserved like veins. The body describes a small business line for a mobile diagnostic partnership, Blake's LLC with my name as ballast. Mechanics hate floating wheels. When the car's lifted and the tires spin freely while the gut begs for friction. I feel that float, that wrongness. I don't reply. I forward the thread to Blake, a new folder, then call the branch. We can't discuss third-party accounts. The officer says, sympathetic and practiced. But you should file an identity misuse alert. I do it while she stays on the line, reading each screen aloud so the timestamps on my screen recording narrate a clean sequence. Rosa texts, pull your credit reports. I pull them, highlight the hard inquiry like it's a bruise that finally bloomed. Teresa leaves a voicemail. Can we avoid making a scene? A scene is already in progress. The only question is whether I'm scenery or a witness. I breathe. I list. I date. I initial. I call the number listed on the alleged account. A generic voicemail answers. Leave a message for Eric, a stranger doing a soft impersonation of my life. I hang up, open a new note titled Questions, and write one word in capitals. Why? A second phone number shadows my name on the credit file. At lunch I walk to the branch because paper smells more honest in person. The banker, Miss Kent, has that steady voice people get after a decade of other people's emergencies. I slide over my ID, the misaddressed email, the hard inquiry printouts, and a statement I signed and dated right there at her desk. She photocopies, asks careful questions, then says, for the record, you may record your own interactions in this state. I've already started. The timestamp floats on screen like a life ring. We line updates. Blake's application time lands in the middle of a shift where my time card shows I was swapping a water pump for Mrs. Alvarez. I call her. She answers on speaker and cheerfully confirms I was under her hood that afternoon, laughing about how I labeled her old belt, do not reuse. MS. Kent frowns at the contact number on the application. Ends in 3312. Not mine. I dial it. The voicemail is a generic mail, leave a message for Eric. The syllables airy and unrooted. Later, in a diner, Rosa's friend, the ex-bookkeeper from my uncle's old construction business, spreads ledger scans on Formica. Blake floated invoices between cousins, she says, tapping dates where my name appears like a watermark I never poured. She flips one page, then another, and I see a pattern like a harness routed wrong, tension building where nobody looks. When she's done, she slides a thin stack across the table, file names that read like a confession tucked into metadata, all sharing the same skeleton. Then she slides me a printout labeled in bold, template, Eric Diagnostic Invoice, V3. The template is a Frankenstein. My old Yelp blurb is stapled to a phone number I abandoned 3 apartments ago, with the exact Craigslist typo I made in 2019, Diagnostics, faithfully preserved like a fingerprint. Whoever built this studied me the way a thief studies a lock, patient and boring, the only kind that works. I still don't know why. Debt, gambling, an inheritance angle I haven't seen. I pull county records at midnight, public insomnia's companion, and find a lien filed last month tied to a home improvement line, the collateral described as family guarantee. Teresa's address sits on that PDF like a dare. I call her gently. Ma, did you sign anything for Blake? Anything with my name near it? She hesitates, then admits he brought a refinance special for kitchen upgrades. He said it was routine, she whispers. My throat goes hot. Where is it? She says, in the drawer with the napkin rings, as if that makes it less sharp. I sketch the risk. If my forged guarantee props a line that feeds Blake's whatever, the bank can lean on her roof first, me next. The why remains fog, but the what is steel. Tomorrow we meet Vega for a short consult. Tonight I list every file to bring, every name to call, every date to align. I underline a reminder in red. Do not confront without witnesses. Do not corner without doors. Blake texts, stop snooping or we all lose more than Sunday dinner. Rosa shows up with empanadas and a yellow legal pad, the twin fuels of our family, carbs and columns. We list, we verify, we decide, she says, drawing 4 headers, document, source, date, time, verification. I write misaddressed bank email, headers saved, then credit pull, identity misuse alert filed, confirmation number 74831, then Mrs. Alvarez call, speaker, timestamp recorded. We star the pieces that need originals, notary logs, bank statements, property records, Chat exports with full metadata. Rosa dials attorney Vega on speaker. He is patient and precise, a torque wrench in a world of chewed sockets. Screenshots are breadcrumbs, he says, but originals are anchors. Don't bait. Just document. Bring sequence. He explains one-party consent clearly. We're within it. He suggests a neutral setting where a mediator can keep the temperature human. I picture a beige room with folding chairs and a projector that hums like a tired alternator. Perfect. We pick the community mediation office 3 blocks from the shop. Ms. Kent agrees to provide a notarized statement if she can't attend. The ex-bookkeeper will confirm version history on the template files. I draft the run of show like I'm writing a repair order. Exhibit A through H, timeline on one slide, signatures zoomed with arrows, then questions. The dilemma hums under the list. Call Blake privately and offer a quiet exit, or make sunlight non-negotiable. I circle option 2. You need witnesses, Rosa says, and underlines it twice. Then an unknown number offers hush money if I sign a release tonight. The call comes late, voice slick like old coolant. We can make this disappear if you sign a release now. I ask for an email. He refuses, verbal only, friend. I hang up and stare at the ceiling fan wobbling like a lie told too many times. The next evening I go to Mom's because saying no to Teresa is an art I'm still learning. She plates baked ziti like she can butter the universe into kindness. Blake arrives with tulips and a grin polished thin. He kisses Teresa's cheek, lingers, then turns to me as if we're in a show he's directing. You're really going to drag Mom through this? He asks. All honey over vinegar. I set my fork down. We're meeting with neutral ears, I say. We'll keep the temperature human. He laughs low. Family handles family. Apologize for the confusion and I'll settle everything quietly. Teresa's hands keep moving, kneading bread that does not need kneading. My phone buzzes with a spam caller. I let it die. Blake, I say. If you have paperwork, bring it to the table. He leans closer, intimidation by cologne. You make pennies, Eric. Don't make this expensive for everyone. I can hear the line under the line. Stay small, stay quiet, be useful. Rosa clears her throat from the doorway. She invited herself and brought a spine. Sometimes family needs a torque spec, she says, smiling without warmth. He smirks, but his eyes are busy doing math. I think of engines that overheat from trapped air. You crack the bleeder screw, let the bubbles hiss out, and the temperature finally drops. We'll crack the system in public, I say. Blake's mouth twitches. Teresa whispers, please be gentle, like gentleness had ever been the problem. A calendar invite pings. Mediation confirmed for Tuesday, 6 p.m. Attendees locked. The mediation office lives in a strip mall between a tax place and a nail salon called Polished Truths, which feels aggressively on-brand. Beige walls. Folding chairs. A projector that hums like a patient complaint. Ms. Shunned, the mediator, sets ground rules. One voice at a time. Everyone gets seen. No recording unless agreed. Exhibits are allowed. Rosa sits to Mom's left, an ant-shaped seawall. I've stacked the evidence in a sequence that breathes. Misaddressed email headers with routing intact. Identity misuse alert with confirmation number 74,831. Credit pull. Time cards from the shop. Mrs. Alvarez on speaker ready to confirm. MS. Kent's notarized statement about the guarantor entry and the 3312 number. The ex-bookkeeper's version history printouts for template. Eric diagnostic invoice. V3. Blake arrives empty-handed, but heavy with posture. We're really doing theatrics? He says. We're doing daylight. I answer. Ms. Chin nods at the screen. Slide 1, then 2, then 3. Dates line up like a torque pattern. Across, diagonal, across. Teresa opens a folder she found in the drawer with napkin rings, papers trembling. He said it was routine, she whispers. Vega dials in by phone, metronome calm. Please read the document title, he says. Teresa swallows. Amended guarantee, kitchen renovation line. Blake rolls his eyes. Screenshots, he says. Feelings. Ms. Chin reminds him we'll verify. I zoom to the signature page. My name sits in loops I never learned. Ink overlapping a date I can document in Greece and payroll. Vega asks for the notary's seal. Rosa holds up a photo from the county's sample book. Teresa pulls a page that bears my forged signature beside Blake's initials. Vega's voice sharpens to a click. Note the seal, he says. Wrong county and wrong embossed style for that month. Ms. Chun records the observation. I advance to the timeline slide. My 14-hour shift, the hard inquiry timestamp, Blake's email to the burner, template, V2 to V3 version jump from the ex-bookkeeper's archive. Why would I guarantee a loan for a business I don't own? I ask, keeping my tone in the lane. Blake tries charm, then pity, then weathered outrage. I did this for family, he says. Eric needed a leg up. Teresa winces like the words pressed a bruise. Rosa doesn't blink. Leg up into whose pocket? She asks. I switch to the bank letter. Ms. Kent's notarized statement explains the disputed guarantor, the 3,312 contact, the mismatch with my records, and the immediate freeze pending review. Blake laughs, a brittle sound. Paperwork can say anything, he says. Your screenshots are vibes. I load Exhibit H, the ledger snippet from the ex-bookkeeper, version history showing who exported what, when, and from which machine. Vibes? I repeat, and press one more arrow key. On the screen, a tidy table populates. Transfer dates, memo lines, destination masked IDs. Ms. Chin leans closer. Vega hums once, satisfied. Teresa grips the chair as if gravity changed. Then the projector shows deposits into Blake's gambling app from the line. The room temperature drops to engine bay winter, that breathless cold where metal rings louder than voices. Ms. Chin calls a brief recess, and Teresa drifts toward the hallway as if gravity has new rules. Rosa follows, hand at her elbow, murmuring something steady and low. I step outside, phone to ear, and file the bank's fraud update with our case number now live. Vega emails a short, careful paragraph to attach to the police report. Dates only, signatures only, routing metadata only. No adjectives, no speculation, the forensic grammar of consequences. Back inside, Blake is pacing from corner to corner, trying on arguments like jackets, discarding each because none of them zip. It's a misunderstanding. Then, I meant to tell you. Then, we can undo this. Then the classic. Think of Mom. He is a slideshow of emergencies without timestamps. MS. Chin calls us to the table again and asks what accountability looks like. The word amends hums in my chest like an alternator bearing, small and relentless. I present a short list. Freeze and unwind the line. Notify the notary registry. Repayment plan drafted with the bank. Apology without qualifiers. Mediated follow-up at 30 days. Blake rolls his eyes so hard the ceiling should flinch. Teresa stares at her hands. Rosa writes each step large on the whiteboard in block letters you could read from the parking lot. The bank ping arrives mid-sentence. Investigation initiated, temporary freeze confirmed, collateral protections engaged. Consequences begin traveling at the speed of paperwork. That night at the shop, I miss lunch returning calls, sign statements near the parts washer, and watch my manager's face pinch at the edges. I can feel the cost landing in places I didn't budget. Sleep, patience, the quiet dignity of keeping your name invisible because it's clean. I go home to a voicemail from a number I half recognize. Someone from Blake's private betting thread hissing about refunds and making it right in-house. Like this is still a family recipe we can salvage with more salt. I press save on fact after fact until my phone feels heavier than a wrench. My manager pulls me aside and asks if I'm bringing drama to the shop tonight. I tell the truth in one exhale. Identity misuse, documented, counsel retained, bank actions underway, police report pending with exhibits. My manager listens, then nods toward the break room. Use PTO for the meetings, he says, then adds, bring donuts Friday. Mercy, in our world, arrives glazed. Teresa sleeps at Rosa's for a week. The house breathes differently when it is named a place that deserves safety. We schedule therapy, me alone at the clinic near the parts store, then a session for Teresa and me together. The counselor draws fences on a whiteboard, gates marked with conditions. Help is not the same as access, she says, and I feel something in me unclench, one click at a time, like a stuck ratchet giving way. We write a boundary sheet in neat lines. Any reconciliation requires a notarized repayment plan supervised by the bank, apology without a but, and no contact until the first two are complete. We add a practical rule for future holidays. All money conversations routed to daylight with third parties present. I tape a copy of the sheet inside my locker next to Mrs. Alvarez's thank you note. The paper becoming the talisman I reach for when old habits ask me to be useful instead of honest. The bank formalizes the dispute. A friendly detective calls to confirm file numbers and tells me, dryly, that fraud always dresses like a favor. Rosa brings over soup and new folders. We label everything as if names were vaccines. Teresa and I sit in a thrift store aisle, laughing helplessly at a dented cake pan that somehow looks like our family portrait and buying it anyway. I sleep through the night for the first time in a month, wake to sun on the tools, and remember that engines heal by running, not by idling. I drive to work early, rotate my tires, and practice the sentence I will use the next time someone confuses forgiveness with access. I accept your apology after you complete your amends. Then Blake emails an apology that asks me to co-sign a different loan today. I don't reply. Teresa writes him back with our boundaries sheet, verbatim, unornamented, and the silence that follows feels clean for once, not punitive, just air where smoke used to be. I return to the rituals that carried me when affection didn't. Torque patterns star-shaped across a wheel, fluids in their right volumes, a rag folded the same way every morning. In therapy, I rehearse plain sentences that don't apologize for reality. I talk to the camera in my mind, the YouTube crowd who somehow stayed to the end, and tell them receipts are boring until the night they save your roof. Start a folder. Timestamp everything. Preserve headers. Ask a banker to explain the line by line like you're smart, which you are. Learn your state's consent rules before you ever hit record. Invite witnesses who love you enough to be unimpressed by charm. Remember that family is not a synonym for impunity, and that boundaries are a kind of love letter to the parts of you that survived. The hopeful image is small on purpose. Teresa and I in the kitchen, the dented cake pan rising a shy, lopsided cake that tastes somehow like starting over. The practical takeaway is smaller still. Money through banks, help in writing, amends before reunion, dinner only when everyone comes honest. I put the boundary sheet back in the locker, slide the last exhibit into the final sleeve, and label the spine so future me won't have to guess. Outside, afternoon light turns the bay door into a bright rectangle, a road-shaped invitation. I wash my hands, scrub the lines clean, and listen to an engine idle back to health. I close the folder and breathe like the engine light finally turned off.